Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is the first time I've ever done this, so this is a great turnout. I feel like somebody wanted to hear me talk. So I'm Rebekah Abrams. I am the owner and founder of Rebekah's Kitchen, which is a small personal chef services company based in Park City, Utah. We offer a wide range of services, including prepared meal delivery, personal chef services, and special events. But we specialize in food allergies and special diets. And we have a heavy focus on locally and organically sourced ingredients. So we want to feed you healthy food in a couple of different ways. I started my cooking career in high school, working in restaurants. It's a great way, great job. The industry always needs people. So I'm sure many of you have worked in the food industry in some way or may in some way in the future. And I started in a bakery. It was an after school job and then a summer job. And then I went to college and I came back and I kept working there. I worked in a restaurant. That was also a summer job, and went off to college, got a degree in fine arts, not culinary arts, and decided I wanted to be a ski bum. And so I pursued my passion for skiing and a career in skiing as a professional skier by supplementing it with working in restaurants. So working at night is really helpful if you want to ski during the day. So that landed me here in Utah, actually. Before, I skied all over the country and I worked all over the country, and I ended up in Colorado for a couple of years and then landed here. So here I am. And in order to continue my passion for skiing, I kept working in restaurants. So I started working up in Little Cottonwood Canyon. I know you asked about that. Thank you for reading my bio. And basically put to work my culinary career in a setting in which I could also ski. And if you guys have ever been up to Little Cottonwood Canyon, that's all you do is you work, you eat, you ski, and then you sleep. So the reason that I chose there is because of connections to family and friends and getting a job there. And so that's kind of how I landed in Utah. And I was, again, always in commercial kitchens. I never thought that I would do this job that I do now. I just thought I'd always work in a kitchen. And I always spent time with my family. My grandparents, my paternal grandparents all worked in food in some manner. My great-grandparents were caterers. My grandparents were both very, very competent chefs. And so that's kind of how I spent time with them. And that's how I ended up cooking. And then my family skied, and that was the way we spent time together as a family. And that's how I ended up skiing. So I kind of married those two together. I'm going to give you, that's a little bit of my bio. This is kind of the origins of Rebekah's Kitchen. That's how we're going to start, and then we're going to go through a couple of topics, and then I'm going to let you guys ask questions. And like I said, this is not what I do on a regular basis, so ride this wave with me, I should say. So a little bit of the origin story. I started Rebekah's Kitchen by accident, I would say. After working all over the country in different restaurants and in different capacities, I ended up here, and a family asked me to come be their personal chef. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, why not? I can do that. I didn't know how to do that. I was like, okay, let's do this. So I ended up in the Bay Area as a personal chef for a family and taught myself everything. It was very much a fly by the seat of my pants. And how am I going to make this work? And my clients would say to me, oh, tonight we want this thing. And then I would go and the internet had barely been invented. And I would Google and I would search blogs. And then I had, dozens of cookbooks, and I would read through all the cookbooks and all my cooking magazines, and I would find the thing. And then I would go to the store, and then I would come home and I would make it. And that really is how I got started. It was completely by accident, but I just learned by doing. And that's the beginning of becoming a personal chef, and learning by doing is definitely very much an entrepreneurial thing to do. So all of a sudden I was a personal chef, and that was my title. And I did that for a year, and then I I miss Utah and I miss skiing, so I did come back here and I started a totally different business. So I stepped back and said, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't my passion. I want to do the thing that I'm passionate about. I want to do the hobby that I'm passionate about. So I started another business and I did that for 8 years. And the reason I'm telling you about this first business is because I'm a serial entrepreneur and most entrepreneurs are. Most small business owners, they don't make it on their first or their second or their third try. They're constantly looking for what's next. And that's really what's important to know. If you really are considering starting a business, it might not work the first time, and that's okay. And failure actually breeds success. It pushes you to either know that this is your passion and this is what you want to do, or it pushes you to do something completely different. And I had this business, and it was a small jewelry business. It was like a cottage industry. I sold jewelry all over the world. And then the economy tanked in 2008, 2009. And I had to pivot. And that is also the soul of an entrepreneur, is being able to pivot. And I pivoted, and I went back to cooking on a very small scale. And I kind of dipped my toe back in the personal chef services. I knew somebody in Park City who was looking for help in their personal chef services business. And I thought, okay, I'll go back and do that for a little bit. You know, it gives me a paycheck and it keeps me busy and working. And so I did that for a winter, and I realized that I could do this on my own. And so I said, all right, I'm going to do this on my own. So I started my own personal chef services company. And I started it having learned from the first business, and this is why serial entrepreneurship is so common, is that we have to learn from our successes and our failures. And so I took all of the successes of that last business, which were a lot, and I did take the failures, which were a lot. I was very young, very driven, and I knew that I would keep wanting to work for myself because I'm a leader and I like to be in charge. This is how I can stand up here and just talk to you, because I do like to talk. I like to be the center of attention, which is helpful as a chef. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to do this really, really simply. I'm not going to throw all the money I have in this. I'm going to do it organically. I'm going to build it. I'm going to grow it. And I'm only going to spend the money that I have. Because with my first business, I spent money I didn't have. And that was the biggest lesson and the biggest failure of my first business, was spending money I didn't have. And not alone. It was credit. It was, taking from one pot to put into another. And that's probably the most valuable lesson I learned from the first business, is you have to wait to spend the money until you know you have it. And not, that you have the money coming, because it doesn't always get there. People, other businesses fail and then they owe you money. So that was my number one goal. I'm going to start this business and I'm not going to do it with debt. So I began this personal chef services business, and it was successful. And I had money in the bank and I wasn't spending the money I didn't have. So it grew very slowly, and I grew probably every year. I grew maybe 10%, let's say. I got new clients, and then I got repeat clients, and I did it with no overhead, which was another really important thing. Starting a business out of your home is great because you don't have that overhead. And knowing that you might have to move into, a commercial building, but not having those expenses, those fixed costs that you always have to take care of, it does give you an advantage. So I started growing the business. I would do everything in somebody's home. So I would come into your house, and I would make a dinner party for you and your guests. And I would cook in your house, I would clean up in your house, and I would leave the kitchen cleaner than I found it. That was one of our mottos. I had students who would come in and help me, and they would be not my sous chef, but my server. So like I said, everybody's had a job in the food industry, so it's pretty easy to find that help. And I love having students work for me because of the flexibility of their schedule and that fact that they don't want to have a full-time job. So I kind of targeted my employees and built my business very slowly. And I always say this as my business coach, I want to build on a steady uphill, right? I don't want to do this and this and this and this. I certainly don't want to do this. Nobody does, but it happens, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. But I wanted to go slow and steady because the last business I built was fast and erratic and too many ups and downs. So I, endeavored into this slow and steady wins the race. And as I grew my business, I knew I didn't know what I was doing. I knew what I was doing in the kitchen, but on the computer and in the books, I did not know what I was doing. And so I ended up applying for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And since I'm not good at slides, I'm trying to keep up with my slides. They're just pretty pictures for you guys to look at. Let's go. I'm here mostly to talk. So I applied for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, which is also what brought me here today, because we use the Slick campus, a different campus, to do our classes. And what it is it's a mini MBA for your business. And I applied 3 times and got rejected every time. And I kept saying to all my friends who have been in this business program, they're not accepting me. And they're all like, that's crazy. Like, you have the exact business that they're looking for. What are you doing wrong? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So on my 3rd try, because they kept coming back and saying, keep applying, keep applying. So on my 3rd try, I applied and I made my bookkeeper, who I just hired, because that's really helpful, know what you don't know, and that was numbers. And I said, can you fill this out for me? Oh, yeah. It took her 10 minutes. And they accepted me right away. They called me right in. And I sat there and I said to them, this is my 3rd try. What kept happening? And they said, well, your numbers were wrong. And I was like, but my numbers weren't wrong. Like, I knew I was filling the numbers out wrong. And I sat there and I looked at the director in the eye and I said, this is why I need this program. I don't get this. I didn't understand any of the numbers. I didn't know what a P&L was. I didn't know any of this. And so that was the thing that helped me put my business into the next phase. But it's also the thing that helped me realize that if I had taken one class in college that I didn't take, it would have been a basic business class. To have a basic understanding of how things work, of what a P&L is, of what all those lines mean, of how to read your profitability, and it is a really easy thing for lots of people who understand math to understand. It was not an easy thing for me to understand. And so the Goldman Sachs, that program, that mini MBA for my business, and the person next to me had an embroidery business, and the person on this side was a hairdresser, she had a salon. And there was a person who had a janitorial services business. We all had completely unrelated businesses, and we were all there for the same reason, which was to learn about our business and to learn how to see our business on paper and to learn how to see what our next vision is. And so that is really essentially how I got here. And I cannot recommend that program enough. I thank SLCC for enabling us to have that, because it really is amazing. And it's something you can all look forward to if you do start a small business, having the advantage of applying for a program like that. And Salt Lake is one of the cities they go to, but I believe this is the most well-attended program in the country, because there are so many small business owners in Utah. There's some statistic about how many small business owners there are in Utah per capita based on all the other states in the country, and it's really high. So, and Utah does support their small businesses. So if that's something you're thinking about doing, this is a great place to do it. So after I finished my program, I realized I needed to scale, because I'm just one person, and only one person can be in one place at one time. And I needed a kitchen, I needed a commercial kitchen, because in order to scale, I needed a place to cook. You can't legally cook out of your home in Utah unless you're a cottage industry or a bakery or something like that. So I also had a dog. There's no cooking in my kitchen. And a curious husband who would stick his fingers in things. So who did not have a health, food handler's permit. So I realized, okay, we have to scale. How are we going to scale? And I didn't walk out of that program in 2017 and scale. And this is important. Patience is really important when you're a small business owner. And we don't all have time, but we do have patience. So I really stepped back and worked in my business, and I thought, okay, how am I going to implement these things? So the next step was to dip my toe into this business, and I said, okay, I'm going to rent a shared kitchen space, and I'm going to see how this works. It was not a lot of overhead, it was not a lot of fixed costs, And I said, I'm going to spend X number of dollars, I think it was $600 a month, which is not a lot in a commercial setting for rent. I'm going to rent this space and I'm gonna see how it goes. And I rented a space in a shared kitchen space. And it was really eye-opening to realize how I could change my business so dramatically by having my own space. And by having a kitchen and scaling the business and cooking for more than one person at a time, which was really not possible when it was just me. So I was like, okay, this is working. And again, slow and steady, money in the bank, not spending money I didn't have. I hadn't gotten a loan yet. And I knew that this was going to be profitable and helpful to my business. So I said, okay, I'm going to find my own kitchen. And that was in about August, September of 2019. I said, all right, I'm going to start looking. So again, I didn't rush, and I'm a pretty impetuous person, so that was hard. And I started looking at commercial spaces. Okay, this one might work, this one might work. And I finally found one that worked. And I signed a lease in January of 2020. And I was like, I said, I'm gonna sign my lease. We're gonna start construction in the spring of 2020. So basically at the end of the winter of 2020, after I had gotten through, put all my money in the bank, because the first quarter in Park City is the busiest quarter for a service like mine because of the ski season. And so I'm putting money in the bank and I'm starting to do kitchen layouts and I'm doing all these things. It's really exciting. And then March of 2020 happened and everything stopped. And I had all this money that I had given to my landlord for my space. And I said, oh shit. And what's gonna happen? And there was like a month of unsurety. And I went back to my business advisors at Goldman Sachs and I said, what should I do? And they were like, well, hang on. Take the PPP money, take all the money they offer you, fill out all the forms correctly, don't lie on anything, and just say yes. And so I took the paycheck stuff but I was an essential business because I was doing food delivery. And so I was able to stay open and operate out of this kitchen, this first kitchen. And then idle happened. And I was like, I said to my advisors, what is idle? Can I have this money? Can I take this money? And I talked to 3 different advisors who I all knew through Goldman Sachs, which again, I cannot stress enough how helpful that was. You might have business professors here that you can go back to and say, hey, 10 years from now, I was in your class, can I ask you a question? It's really important to ask people for their help when you need it. And so I said to my advisors, can I take idle? And they said yes, because the kitchen I was working in was not safe. I was working with lots of other people. They were not masking. They did not care. And it was not safe for me because I didn't want to risk getting sick. And so they said, yes, take that money. This is why you're going to take it. You're going to build a kitchen. It's essential for you to run your business during COVID. And it was probably the best interest rate I was ever going to get on a business loan. So I took my idle loan and I moved forward. My landlord and I moved forward. We built a kitchen during COVID and opened in November of 2020. And that's the kitchen I'm currently in. And it's been an upward trajectory ever since. And I'm very grateful for that. I have realized that COVID was not great for a lot of people, but for my business and what I was doing, it was beneficial because I had people helping me navigate through that system and say, yes, do this. So that is the origin of where I am today. That's the Rebekah's Kitchen origin story and how I got to this kitchen. And in November, we'll celebrate 5 years of being open as a small business in this commissary kitchen. So we built a commissary kitchen, and that means that it's a functional kitchen. We're not open to the public. You don't come in and sit down like a restaurant and be waited on. This is strictly for production. And what I did was I took my mini MBA from Goldman Sachs, 10,000 small businesses, and I took my growth opportunity, which is the thing that they really focus on, is how do you grow your business? And you don't need Goldman Sachs to ask what your growth opportunity is, what it is that you're going to do to create a small business, and what is the focus of this small business. And that focus for me in that program, because the personal chef services they were working. And in order to scale the personal chef services, I need another chef, which means I need another place for them to work. well, what else am I gonna do to make this kitchen have more than one function? Because I knew I didn't want to share that kitchen with anybody. So I turned around and I went back to my Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses, to the growth opportunities, to the thing I never thought I would do, to the notebook I never thought I would use. And I opened it up and I was like, oh, here it is, it's right here. I already know what I'm gonna do. And so I created a sustainable prepared meal delivery service. And in order to do that, I had to have a kitchen. So what I mean by sustainable is that we deliver fully cooked, ready to heat and serve meals every Monday to a client base in the Park City area. And they come in glass containers, which we swap out so they're reusable. So I'm lowering my carbon footprint. I'm a green certified green business. You're not getting takeout every week. You're getting fresh meals that somebody just prepared ahead of time and you're gonna heat and serve. And that is what we built the kitchen to do. So 5 years in, we're a fun business and I would say it's successful. My business coach told me it wasn't anyways, because I still don't know how to read the numbers correctly. And I still need somebody else to tell me, yes, that's what that means. And I still need somebody to show me how to run a formula and understand that actually I am doing all right. So again, you don't know what you don't know, and recognizing what you don't know is probably the best thing you can do as a small business owner, and asking for that people to help you with those things. So there are ups and downs to being a small business owner. It's the best thing and the worst thing all at once. It's scary and amazing and satisfying and exciting. And it's intense. It's owning a small business is like a roller coaster. And especially when you're a sole proprietor, which I am, and this is something that I made a decision about a long time ago. Again, going back to, I didn't want to take money from anybody. You can always take an investor for your business. And you might have a business that needs an investor, and you might need capital that you're never going to get from a small business loan. You don't want to pay the interest rates on a small business loan are actually pretty high, in my opinion, and maybe not always realistic to pay off. But taking on a partner or an investor, silent or not, means that you are not in charge all the time. And that is an upside and a downside to being a small business owner. I fill out paperwork all the time, and there's always a box in there saying, are you the sole proprietor? And if you click yes, you move forward. If you click no, it opens up like a whole nother set of things you have to do. And for me, that wasn't worth it. But I don't have anybody to support me. I mean, my husband's great, my business coach is great, but like, it's still all me at the end of the day. If I make a decision to buy something like a new refrigerator, I'm the only one who's making that decision, and I'm the only one that's accountable for that decision. Whereas if you have business partners, which is an up and a down as well, you are beholden to your partners now. And it's something that I find a lot of restaurants get into, that I watch friends struggle with, because that's great if you have a silent partner who doesn't care what happens at the restaurant. But if you have a shared ownership with somebody who does care, who doesn't know anything about running a restaurant or the business you're in, I mean, this is a general statement that this person might not know anything about your business and they just want to invest in it. You still have to answer to them, and you still have, there's legal things that happen that you have to uphold, and there's emotional things that happen, and there's personal things that happen. And so that is something that you have to be ready for, that I know about myself that I did not want to do. It's not to say that taking on investors isn't a great idea, because there is definitely a time and place for it. But it goes back to these ups and downs and this roller coaster of being a small business owner. I don't have somebody to go back to and say, help hold them accountable. Everything, all of the accountability always falls on my shoulders. And that's really hard and stressful, but also really rewarding, because I know that I'm the figurehead of my business. I know everything that happens in my business is because of me. So there are a lot of ups and downs to doing this. And it's not for everybody, and it's not for the faint of heart. And you have to be confident, and you have to have people that you can trust and that you can ask questions of, because it's very lonely. being the only one is very lonely. So having a partner, that's really great because now you get to go back to them and say, hey, what do you think we should do here? But being a sole proprietor and being the only one it gets lonely. So those are ups and downs, and I encourage you to take that ride for sure, because it's been amazing. But know that that's the ride, that it's a ride, and that it's not always going to be great. And there are going to be times when you struggle and you stress and you need help and you need to ask for help. But there are going to be times when people ask you to come present at a classroom because you're a chef and you have a small business. Never been asked to do that otherwise. So that's the ups and downs of being a personal chef and being a small business owner. There's a lot of competition in my industry, and so you have to deal with that. You have to decide, do I want to market? You have to know that there's another chef out there getting an award for something that you'll never get recognized for because of the business that I've chosen. And sometimes that's hard. It's hard to constantly be changing the menu when it's just you. It's hard to constantly be keeping up with trends when it's just you. It's hard to see Instagram and know that it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing on there because you're still making good food and people are still calling you back. So those are all struggles, but also things that make you want to be better, which is great. I'm sure you guys want to know a little bit about what it's like to be a personal chef. It's awesome. I love it. I would never go back to a commercial restaurant setting ever again. I did it for a long time, and I'm really happy with the career path that I've chosen. There is no typical day. I know that was one of the questions on my speaking points. I was like, oh, what's a typical day? Every day is totally different. And when I was just running a small business and it was just me and I did literally everything, every day was different in that I got up, I looked at my menu for the day, I went to the grocery store, I went on site, I started prepping, I did some dishes, kept prepping, I did some dishes, I set the table, I did some dishes, I kept prepping. My server would show up and do more dishes, so many dishes. And I would serve dinner, I would communicate with my clients, I would, get my praise, which is obviously the best part. And then I would go home, we would clean up, we would clean the kitchen, you scrub that kitchen down every night, just like you do in a commercial setting, but it's somebody's kitchen, so they're gonna notice if you don't do something, and my clients tell me when I miss something. And then you go home and exhausted, and then you get up and do it again the next day. That was the typical day when I first started my business. Now, my typical day is I now have 3 full-time chefs and 5 part-time servers. And those 3 full-time chefs are salaried with benefits, which is pretty unusual in this industry, and I'm really proud that I can do that. I do that because I want to, not because I have to, and that's something that I learned from Goldman Sachs. What the requirements are of a small business in terms of having employees. And because I am such a small business, I have less than 10 to 15 employees, I get to do pretty much whatever I want. Maybe, I still have to pay taxes and, follow laws, but it does not require me to do a lot of things. And so therefore, being able to do certain things for my employees is really huge. So we have health insurance and I pay for more than they pay for. We have paid time off, which does not happen in a restaurant setting. Pretty much ever, unless you're in a corporate restaurant setting and you have to punch a clock and you have to be beholden to the corporate overseers, which I was never interested in. So I built a very unusual food-based business. And again, going back to knowing about my business and learning about my business from 10,000 small businesses, which you guys can all get here at Slick, those same courses. That might take you a little longer, but that's okay. It's worth the time and energy. But what I learned was all of the things I have to do and all the things I can do. And so that is part of my everyday, making sure health insurance is correct, making sure time off is correct, making sure my chefs are happy, making sure they're cooking the things that I want them to cook, making sure they're cleaning the things they're supposed to clean, making sure they're getting on time. So I'm managing people. Sometimes I have to clean the bathroom. I have to do billing. I have to pick up the kosher chicken from Trader Joe's because that's the only place you can get kosher chicken in Utah. So, I mean, I'm a problem solver now. Because I'm the executive chef and the owner of a small business, I'm also the chief problem solver. And one of the things that has changed in my day-to-day life is that I am not cooking every day. I'm not on site every day because I have employees who are doing that. So that is part of my day. Part of my day is, looking at numbers and knowing what we need to do, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. And running a food business means that you first and foremost have to be passionate about what you do. And I'm not here to tell you to start a business that is all about what you're passionate about, because that isn't necessarily the way you should start a small business. You should start a small business based on something you're good at, something that you know and understand, and the passion comes with that. But with a food-based business, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, I would get out. The profit margin is not high. It's typically 5 to 10%, which is pretty low for a small business. And if you're looking in tech, which is I don't know what the statistic is. I'm sure it's 20 to 30% is a good healthy profit margin. But being a restaurant owner, being a food business owner, being a food truck owner, any of those types of businesses, your profit margin is kind of low. So you have to learn how to be very smart with how you run your business so that you're making the money you need to make to not go into debt, making decisions and things like that. So that's part of my day-to-day business. And it is important that you have skills in whatever industry you want to go into. So just because you want to be a carpenter and you want to start a business in carpenter, you have to know how to be a carpenter. You can't just decide, get up one day and go, I'm going to be a carpenter. So kind of paying your dues is really important in a small business. The idea of being able to walk out of school with a degree and start a small business is a blue sky idea, as they call it. And it's awesome, and you should have that passion. If you know you have that passion, keep that passion, but know that you need the skills to support what you're doing. And that's the foundation, to have that bedrock, not to use a carpentry pun, I suppose, but I use food puns all the time, so guilty. But being passionate about what you're doing is important, but also understanding how to run a business is really important. And I tell you that from experience and from the experience of failure. And then the best part about being a chef is that no 2 days are the same. And I like that. I definitely have ADD and I definitely like to do 4 things at once. And so being a chef was really easy for me to do because I had all those things in my nature. And I think that that's what's important about if you choose to run a small business, that you're doing something that is in your nature. You're not fighting something. You're doing something that you know you're good at. And again, it doesn't have to be, the focus doesn't have to be what you're passionate about. The focus has to be what you know you're good at. So the first business I was passionate about, and I was not good at the business part. The second business, which is the current business, I'm good at the business part now, and I'm a really great chef, and now I am passionate about it. And I'm passionate about my business, and I'm passionate about food. And I've always been passionate about food, but I'm passionate about my business. And that's what's important. It's not important that you're passionate about what you're selling, it's important that you're passionate about selling. And that's the best advice I can give to a small business owner is you have to be passionate about it. If you're not interested in it, you're never going to make it the way you want to. I did business with a tiny little mushroom grower out of Evanston, Wyoming. And he was such a nice guy. And he really did enjoy what he was doing. But he came in one day, because we talked about mushrooms and it was fun. And he came in one day, he said, oh, I got this is my last delivery. I said, what? We've been buying mushrooms from you for like 6 months. These have been great mushrooms. What's going on? Well, we're gonna shut the business down. We're just not making it. I was like, okay. So what are you gonna do next? And he was like, I'm gonna start a card store. And I was like, best of luck to you. And he left. And I was like, that guy's never gonna make it. Such a nice guy. There was no passion because he wasn't passionate about mushrooms. he wasn't passionate. I don't think he's passionate about having a card shop. I was assuming he's like a comic book store was kind of what my takeaway was. I don't know. And I thought to myself, just gonna keep starting businesses because he thinks it's a quick way to start a business. But that isn't success. That's not that he's not gonna be successful at that. So I don't know. We'll see if his card store is successful. But that's kind of my point about that passion, being passionate about your business, not passionate about what you're doing in the business, but passionate about running the business. So that's me on site, and it's me doing a dinner for 25 people, seated plated, for the National Ability Center fundraiser up in Park City. It's the charitable organization that I'm the most passionate about. And it's the organization in Park City that we support the heaviest. And we do a seated plated wine pairing dinner every March. They sell tickets to it's a million, probably a $2 million fundraiser at this point. It was $1 million a couple of years ago. So, and it's grown exponentially. And it's really important that I give back to my community. And as a small business, that is kind of the roots of a small business, because when you give back to your community, they give back to you. So this is obviously, I get something out of this. I'm getting exposure, I'm getting introduction to potential clients, but it's really important and really is the foundation in a small town of a small business is being part of your community. And Salt Lake is a small town. Don't be fooled. I mean, the business community in Salt Lake is small. And so being part of that community is really important. Joining the Chamber of Commerce, supporting anything that hits home with you. I support the National Ability Center because I have a niece who has disabilities that would use the National Ability Center. So that's why it's important to me. I have a very beloved friend who passed away from cancer. So I will support those kinds of organizations as well when somebody comes to me. We're a certified green business, so we support the recycling center in Park City. We support basically all the not-for-profits in Park City. We support any way we can. And it gets my name out there and people see that I'm doing good and they want to support me. So that's my origin story. It's why I came down to talk to you. It's what I came to talk to you guys about, but I want to know what you want to talk to me about. So I want to know if anybody has any questions about running a business.
This isn't about running a business, it's more about yours, but what's your favorite thing to cook?
Oh, I get asked that all the time. And I don't have an answer. I mean, I love cooking everything. We do a lot of like comfort food, American fusion, where you're taking from all the different cultures of food that I've learned over the years and kind of hybriding them into my style, which is heavily influenced by Italian cooking because I lived in Italy, and Indian cooking because I lived in India. So I like to use all the things I learned there. And I, by the way, did not study food in either of those places. Studied my first business actually in both of those places. But I ate a lot of food because I've always liked to eat and I've always liked to dine. So it's always been part of who I am. So it's a hard question to answer, but I really like cooking for people and I like being in front of them and watching them enjoy things. Like compliments are, that's what feeds me, it fuels me. So, but organic and locally sourced is really what I like to cook the most probably. I love working with farmers. It's so fun. I go out to a lot of farms where we buy things from. We do a tour of the farm and I'll take, I get to see the cows and thank them for their service to my clients. And yeah, it's cool. We have a lot of farms in Utah. So in the summer especially, 50% of our ingredients are local somehow. Mushrooms, I get mushrooms. I got a new mushroom guy. He's definitely passionate about it. Been in business for a lot longer. All of our beef is local, so I work with them. They're a small business owner. All of the farms that we buy produce from in the summer, they're all small businesses. So small businesses doing business together. What else? What else can I enlighten you on?
So it kind of sounds like you might not be as impacted about Sundance, but like, what are you seeing in Park City with the Sundance announcement?
I have always been pro hybrids for Sundance. I would love to have seen it stay in Salt Lake and be just a little bit in Park City. I don't know how many of you guys have been up to Park City during Sundance. Sundance has outgrown us. Sundance is too big for us now. And I've been in Park City for 20 years, more than that, 23, and watched Sundance change pretty dramatically. And I used to go see all the movies. I used to wait in line to get tickets. I would sleep out on the sidewalk overnight to get in line to buy tickets, back when that's how you had to do it. And the soul of Sundance has changed so much that it doesn't need Park City anymore. I mean, it's, it's sad. It's always sad to see something change like that. I think that the impact financially on Park City is actually going to be really positive, because it's easy to see 40,000 people, descend upon Park City and go, oh, the businesses must be doing so good. They're not all doing good. Any business that's in the ski industry suffers during that week. The hotels are doing good now, they did not used to. Shuttle services, all that stuff does really well. Some of the restaurants do really well, but some of the restaurants don't do well at all. There's a lot of businesses on Main Street that don't do any business. They shut down, and this will impact them because they basically charge a whole year's rent for 10 days. So they'll, like, the art galleries are a really good example of this. But that art gallery has, I watch this and go, oh God, they must be so relieved they don't have to do this, but they're not gonna pay their rent that way. They're not gonna have to sell art. And I have always said, if your business is based on 10 days of the year, and I think this is universal for the entire world, then you're doing something wrong. Because as soon as that 10 days of the year gets disrupted from COVID, from a hurricane, from anything that you have no control over, your business is no longer viable. And that that's not running the business. I have lots of businesses around me in my plaza. And so we, all of our phones blew up when they made that announcement about Sundance. And everybody's okay. I haven't talked to anybody who's devastated yet. And I think that it's because now the businesses who used to lose money during Sundance are actually probably gonna make some money. And the businesses who made all their money during Sundance are gonna have to pivot. And I think that it'll be interesting to see. I'm sad that it's leaving Utah. And I have other thoughts about that you can talk to me after class about, but I am sure it will do just fine in Boulder. So that's a great question, and it definitely impacts the community in Park City for sure. It'll impact Salt Lake, it'll impact the state in terms of revenue that it generates with sales tax dollars. So anything else? Does anybody else have any other interesting questions for me? These are two very good questions.
So you said that you learned how to be passionate, or the passion came along the way for the business of cooking, right? So I'm just trying to think, like, you didn't have that passion at first. When was the point where the passion really started to come?
When my business became successful, when I realized I was doing something successful. I'm passionate about food and I'm passionate about cooking, but I'm also passionate about success as a business owner. And that the success is what it's kind of not, it's a chicken or the egg, right? They kind of feed off of each other. I found something I was good at doing. I built a business around it. I found success. Success breeded the passion to keep doing what I do. And to extend my knowledge too. I mean, I go to food conferences, I read all the time. Instagram is great for me because I can scroll through and be like, oh, what's that? And then I look and I'm like, oh, I'm inspired. I'm gonna take the thing that I'm seeing you do that's kind of absurd, but I'm gonna make it not absurd, or the thing that you're doing that is really basic and I'm gonna make it bigger. So that's all the passion of wanting to continue to succeed and be successful, and having people tell me, oh my God, your business is doing so good. Oh, Rebekah, I see you. I saw you do this thing. I saw you do this thing. That's where the passion comes from, right? It's being told that you're doing well. So it's success breeds passion. Is that a fair answer?
Yeah, that's fair.
So you don't have to be passionate about the thing you're going to do if you want to start a small business, or any business for that matter, but you have to figure out what feeds your fire. And so knowing what feeds your fire is what's going to make your business successful.
Are you at the point where you do a lot of the cooking like with the other chefs, or do you more just kind of send them out and manage everything?
So we prep in our commissary kitchen together, so we do have a small community in the kitchen where everybody's together working side by side doing things, and then chefs go off on site. I am not physically chopping onions, but I am there talking to people, what are you doing right now? And that is, if you ask me what the hardest thing about running businesses, it's managing people, for me. Some people are really good at managing people, I am not, it is not my strong suit, it is really hard. And if you start a small business and you have employees, know you will have to manage people. Even if you have 2 employees, you will still have to manage them. They still need stuff, and so that's more what I'm doing, is managing how everybody's cooking, because I have one chef who has one cooking style and he's kind of new, and I have another chef who's been in this industry for 50 years and he gets my style, so I don't have to manage him as much. I still have to look over his shoulder and be like, why are you doing that with that? Whereas the other chef, I have to constantly be looking over their shoulder going, why are you doing that with that? So it's building a team is really. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So yes, cooking sometimes, and I do go on site, like I have 2 special requests this weekend, and they want Rebekah. They don't want the other chefs, and they will usually make it very clear, or I have a client that I've been cooking for 15 years that I know I can't send another chef out on site. And then I'll send the other chefs out to other things. We do a lot of bachelorette parties and bachelor parties, because that's an Instagrammable moment. Thank you, Instagram. So we do a lot of that stuff where it's people who won't necessarily be coming back. They don't care who the chef is. They just want my chef. They want Rebekah's Kitchen in there, and that's my chef representing Rebekah's Kitchen. Anyone else in the last minute? I'll stick around if anybody has any questions.
In regards to like sourcing, like when you were first starting, how did you like go about making those connections?
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Sourcing, and in the food industry, it's really hard, and I did it during COVID. It was like how to really start sourcing, so it's actually changed really dramatically. Like I was wherever I could find whatever I needed during COVID, and then I started going, okay, well, I found this there, I want to get this product again, it's no longer available in this place. Doing orders is one of the hardest things I do, because I am constantly, oh, well, Cisco doesn't have this week. They said they won't have it to me for 2 weeks. Amazon has it, but it's twice as expensive. Do I do it from Amazon, or do I wait the 2 weeks for Cisco to get it? Or do I try and find it at Costco? Do I try and find it at the grocery store? The markup on food is only about 30, it's like 10 to 30%. So I'm not always saving money by using wholesalers, and I've learned that. So, and I know what everything costs. If you want to know about groceries, call me, because I know everything. I know how much it's changed. Eggs haven't changed as dramatically as the media wants you to think. Neither is bacon, but graham crackers have. That's actually the thing that I've noticed the most dramatic change in price on. So sourcing is really hard, and knowing your vendors and having a relationship with your vendors is, to me, the most important thing. Sometimes my staff gets kind of like, why are we doing the beef thing? And the family that raises the beef, that we only use that beef, like full stop, because I have such a tight relationship with them now, and they're so important to me, and I want to support them and they want to support me. So relationships or sourcing, they're the same thing, so.